What made Peace Sells the defining moment that solidified Megadeth's place in thrash history? Let's dive into how this album reshaped the genre and catapulted the band forward. Megadeth, led by Dave Mustaine, was riding a wave of momentum in 1985. Fresh off the release of Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good in June, they hit the road to promote it. By December, new material was already in the works, with Dave Mustaine revealing to Metal Forces magazine that they'd already begun working on Black Friday and Bad Omen. Yet, success came with a dark underside. Much of the first album's budget had been funneled into drugs, a habit that had escalated during their tour. Drummer Gar Samuelson and guitarist Chris Poland, both rooted in jazz, embodied what they called the jazz lifestyle, and they were heavy heroin users, urging Mustaine to join them in their pursuit of musical greatness. Despite these spiraling struggles, Megadeth pushed forward. They began work on Peace Sells But Who's Buying during the tour, writing in vans and RVs between shows. Driven by a desire to outdo Metallica, Mustaine upped the aggression in his writing, drawing from the raw intensity of their debut. By February of 1986, armed with a $25,000 cash advance from Combat Records, they entered Music Grinder Studios in Venice, California, prepared to record their groundbreaking second album. There's no definitive answer for what gear Dave Mustaine used on Peace Sells, but based on his live rig at the time, we can make some educated guesses. He most likely used his BC Rich Bitch, which had a DiMarzio super distortion in the bridge and a Bill Lawrence in the neck. For amps, Mustaine probably stuck with his JCM 800 and paired that with either a Marshall or a Demure cab that had V30s in it. Chris Poland may have also used his BC Rich Bitch on this album, pairing it with an unusual combo, using a Rockman headphone amp and a JCM 800 to give it a more saturated tone. While these details aren't confirmed 100%, I pieced these together from looking at some blogs, some forums, Reddit, and looking at live videos. And together, Mustaine and Poland recorded all the rhythms and solos for all the tracks. With a bigger recording budget this time, Megadeth knew that they couldn't repeat the mistakes of their debut. They were frustrated with the production on Killing Is My Business, feeling that it held back their aggression and speed. So for Peace Sells, they brought in Randy Burns. Known at the time for his work with Possessed, Burns had an ear for capturing metal's raw energy, and he would soon become a staple in the genre. Every track on Peace Sells was written by Dave Mustaine, but everybody contributed to shaping its sound. Mustaine has mentioned that Chris Poland could play circles around him, and Poland's solos on this album are on another level, pushing Mustaine to step up his own lead playing to keep pace. Together they created a powerful guitar duo that would define the album's fierce sound. Finishing the album in just a month, the band was determined to correct the mistakes they made with their debut. On their first album, Killing Is My Business, Combat Records had left them disappointed with poor quality cover art. Mustaine had drawn up his own mascot, Rattlehead, to represent Megadeth on the cover, but the final artwork fell short.
How many different ways you want me to say we got fucked, Warren?
For Peace Sells, they had enlisted Ed Repka, who would go on to become a legendary figure in metal album art. Repka captured Mustaine's vision perfectly, creating an iconic cover that brought Megadeth's vision to life. Dave's next move wasn't what most people expected. Their first album had sold over 100,000 copies, a huge success for a debut, but Dave wasn't satisfied. Driven by a fierce desire to compete with Metallica, he felt he was lagging behind. Determined to push Megadeth forward, he urged Combat Records to sell their contract to a more powerful label, which led them to Capitol Records. Capitol saw the potential in Peace Sells, and before its September 1986 release, they brought in producer Paul Lanny to remix the album, aiming to refine Megadeth's sound and take their impact to the next level. So for these tracks, I'm using my Solar GC 1.6 TVR. It's got Duncan pickups in the bridge and the neck. I'm going to be running it through a noise gate, the TSE 808, the Nambridi MRH 810, and two Dave Mustaine Marshall V30 IRs, one mic with an SM57 and the other with a U87. I found somewhere online that this might be in the combo that they used. While I'm not exactly sure, I think it gives it a good tone. The album opener showcases some of Megadeth's best solos and grooviest songwriting. Lyrically, it's pretty straightforward. It describes an affair that he had with a woman named Diana. While the lyrics are not complex, its power lies in its guitar work. So I don't know how I didn't talk about this during the video, but there's a really cool section in Wake Up Dead where Dave Mustaine has his own invented technique. He calls it the spider chords. It was first used on Ride the Lightning when he was with Metallica. They kept it. It definitely feels like he's trying to one-up them here. and made it a little bit faster and a little bit harder, but it's still a really cool technique that he invented that I wanted to mention. And Lamb of God would eventually cover it with Megadeth in 2022. The Conjuring dives into Mustaine's teenage experiences with black magic and the occult. Reflecting on his youth, he once said, "I put a hex on the dude and his leg got messed up. I also tried to love hex, and that seemed to work." Due to Mustaine's later Christian beliefs, this song fell out of their rotation, but has since been added into their live performances in the last decade. Peace Sells was born from a bass line by Dave Mustaine on Ellefson's homemade fretless bass, and the rest of the song would be put together in a 2-hour practice. Originally it was an 8-minute piece, but Gar's jazz instinct helped him trim it down to 4. The title for the song and the album came from a Reader's Digest article on his girlfriend's nightstand, titled "Peace Sells But Nobody's Buying." Fittingly, MTV would use the opening bass line as their news intro for years. Devil's Island is inspired by the notorious penal colony off the coast of South America. The track tells a tale of a prisoner awaiting execution, but ultimately condemned to a life of isolation on the island. Simple yet catchy, the riffs capture the haunting desolation of the setting, surrounded by shark-infested waters and rocky shoals. The first part, Good Mourning, is a haunting instrumental. Black Friday kicks in as one of the band's most violent tracks, detailing a homicidal rampage, a theme inspired by their first drummer, Dijon Carruthers, who had a lot of experience with the occult. And Slayer's Kerry King once played the song live with the band in 1984. Bad Omen is another track reflecting on Dave Mustaine's teenage fascination with black magic and the occult, continuing the album's darker themes. The final track, My Last Words, focuses on a game of Russian roulette. This song is a personal favorite of Lars Ulrich, who secretly felt proud of Mustaine's achievements when he bought this album upon its release. Unlike Metallica, Megadeth came into Peace Sells with an established sound, allowing them to sharpen and expand on it. The album brought tighter guitar work, refined songwriting, and solos that pushed their technical edge even further. If there was a drawback, it's that the album feels front-loaded. Ride the Lightning offers a more balanced approach, with only a track or two that could be considered filler. That said, Peace Sells and Wake Up Dead remain undisputed classics. Peace Sells is iconic. It's been Megadeth's most performed song live, at 1,879 live performances. These two tracks also marked a milestone. Megadeth was finally able to beat Metallica to the punch at something. These were two of the first thrash songs to have music videos. Other tracks like Devil's Island and The Conjuring hold incredible energy, but they don't appear often on the band's live performances, due to Mustaine's religious reservations up until the last decade. Good Morning Black Friday and Bad Omen don't personally resonate with me. They feel more like B-sides that just fell short. My Last Words ranks a bit higher, thanks to the incredible composition near the end of the track, though it doesn't reach the consistency of the album's top tracks. And we're not even going to talk about the cover on the album because I don't think it's worth mentioning. Peace Sells, But Who's Buying has stood the test of time as Megadeth's third most performed album. Certified platinum in the US and reaching number 76 on the Billboard 200, it's a testament to its legacy. Among the big four, it's the second strongest sophomore album, with a legacy all its own. Even if Mustaine might not want to hear it, it's almost as good as Ride the Lightning, yet undeniably makes its own landmark in thrash. Megadeth was one of the first bands that I discovered early on in my guitar journey. Dave's vocals were a hurdle at first, but they eventually grew on me, and Megadeth was one of my favorite bands at the time. I drifted away from thrash, and Megadeth fell out of my regular rotation. In the past 5 years, I've found a renewed appreciation for the bands that I loved as a teenager, and while Megadeth doesn't dominate my playlists, I wanted to make this video as a way to reconnect with their music, and it reminded me just how incredible the first 4 tracks of Peace Sells are. Working on this video reignited my appreciation for Megadeth, even got me revisiting their first and third albums. While Rest in Peace is one of my favorite albums of all time, Peace Sells is more of a mixed bag for me. It has some of their best early work, paving the way for what Rust in Peace would become, but it also includes a few tracks that I think could have used more polish. If you haven't explored this album, I really highly recommend it. Personally, my 2 favorite tracks in the album are Wake Up Dead and Devil's Island. I think they really offer some unique guitar work and some really cool riffs. So yeah, check out Peace Sells if you haven't yet. So if you enjoyed this video, I think you should check out this one. My friend Michael Quinn and I, we took a look at Megadeth's Peace Sells and Metallica's Master of Puppets and tried to compare the two albums because they came out the same year, and we thought it'd be a good idea to compare the two. So if you enjoyed this video on Peace Sells, I think you might enjoy that one. If you stuck around this long, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace!